Hey, what time is it where you're watching this? And where are you right now? Your bedroom, maybe alone in your living room, or perhaps somewhere you can finally hear the truth without anyone judging you. I'm asking because the knowledge you're about to receive, this isn't something you casually stumble upon during your lunch break. This is the kind of information that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself, your power, and the very fabric of reality itself. You see, there's a reason I want to know where you are and what time it is. Because after the next 30 minutes, you're going to look at that clock differently. You're going to feel that space around you differently. And most importantly, you're going to understand the power that's been flowing through your body since the moment you hit puberty. A power so forbidden, so incredibly potent, that every major religion, every government, every control system on this planet has spent thousands of years trying to make you feel ashamed of it, guilty about it, or completely disconnected from it. They called it sin, they called it dirty, they called it something to hide and suppress and feel terrible about. But what if I told you that the very energy they taught you to fear, to waste mindlessly, to give away without thought, is actually the same energy that ancient magicians used to bend reality, manifest their deepest desires, heal their bodies, extend their lives, and literally create worlds? What if I told you that your sexual energy isn't just about physical pleasure or biological reproduction, but is actually the most concentrated form of creative life force in the entire universe? And that right now, in this very moment, you're sitting on a gold mine of reality-shaping power that could transform your entire existence. But you've been programmed, conditioned, brainwashed into throwing it away, day after day, week after week, without ever understanding what you're actually doing. This is red magic. This is the forbidden science of sexual alchemy. And this is exactly why they don't want you to know the truth. Let me take you back, way back, before Christianity demonized the body, before organized religion turned your natural life force into something sinful, back to ancient Egypt, where the mystery schools understood something that modern society has completely forgotten. In the temples of Isis, in the secret chambers of Karnak, the initiates were taught that sexual energy, what they called the serpent fire, was nothing less than the raw material of creation itself, the same force that brings galaxies into existence, the same power that makes a seed explode into a mighty tree, the same energy that literally creates life where there was none before. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. Your sexual energy has the biological capacity to create an entire human being, to take two microscopic cells and transform them into fingers and eyes and a beating heart and a thinking brain, to literally manifest consciousness into physical form. And you think that kind of power is limited to just making babies? The Egyptian priestesses and priests knew better. They understood that this creative force, this serpent energy coiled at the base of your spine, could be directed, could be channeled, could be transmuted into absolutely anything you desired. They didn't waste it on fleeting moments of physical release. Oh no, they moved it up through the chakras, up through the energy centers of the body, transforming raw sexual power into manifestation energy, into healing energy, into the ability to literally bend the fabric of reality to their will. This wasn't mythology, this wasn't superstition. This was practical magic, and the evidence is everywhere if you know where to look. The Ankh, that famous Egyptian symbol. Do you know what it really represents? It's the union of masculine and feminine energies, the merging of opposites to create the key to immortality, the key to life itself. The obelisks that stand in every major city of power around the world, Washington, D.C., the Vatican, London. Do you think it's a coincidence that they're phallic symbols, representations of the masculine generative force? And the domes, those feminine receptive structures, always positioned nearby? This is red magic hiding in plain sight, the use of sexual symbolism and sexual energy by those who understand its true power, while the masses are taught to giggle nervously or feel uncomfortable, never understanding that they're looking at the architecture of reality manipulation. Now let's talk about what's really happening when you experience sexual arousal, because this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. And this is where modern science actually starts to catch up with ancient wisdom, even though they'll never admit where the knowledge really came from. When sexual energy begins to build in your body, you're not just experiencing a physical sensation, you're literally generating a frequency, a vibration that begins at the base of your spine in what the ancients called the Muladhara chakra, or what modern mystics call the root chakra. This energy, this Kundalini serpent, is dormant in most people, coiled up and sleeping, waiting for the moment of awakening. But even in its dormant state, when you feel sexual desire, when you feel that rush of energy, that warmth spreading through your body, what's actually happening is that you're beginning to activate the most powerful energy generator in your entire being. Scientists who study this, though they won't use the mystical language, have discovered that during sexual arousal, your brain releases a cascade of neurochemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and dozens of others. But here's what they won't tell you. Here's the secret that the ancient Taoist masters understood perfectly. When you allow that energy to build, when you don't immediately release it through orgasm, when you hold that power and consciously direct it upward, through your spine, you're literally rewiring your neural pathways. You're activating dormant parts of your brain. You're opening channels of perception that most humans never even know exist. The Taoists called this practice retention. And they didn't do it because they were repressed or afraid of pleasure. No, they did it because they understood that every time you release sexual energy through orgasm, you're giving away your creative power. You're letting that concentrated life force spill out into the void instead of using it to literally reshape your reality. Think about how you feel after an orgasm. Really think about it. There's often a sense of depletion, of tiredness, of energy that's been spent, right? That's not just in your head, that's real, because you've just discharged a massive amount of creative potential. You've just released energy that could have been transmuted into manifestation power, healing power, psychic power, but instead it's gone, dissipated, wasted. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. And this is where we start to understand why sexual energy is called red magic, and why it's been so carefully hidden and suppressed by those who want to keep you powerless. In the Western esoteric tradition, in the secret teachings of ceremonial magic, practitioners have always understood that there are different colors or types of magic, and red magic specifically refers to the use of sexual energy, life force, blood power, and primal creation force to manifest intentions in the physical world. It's called red because of its association with blood, with life, with passion, with the raw, visceral power of embodied existence. And it's been forbidden throughout history because it gives power directly to the individual. It bypasses all the religious intermediaries, all the priests and popes and gurus who want you to believe that you need them to access divine power. Red magic says no, the power is in you, the power is you, and you can access it right now through the very biological processes that they've taught you to be ashamed of. The Tantric masters of ancient India understood this perfectly, and authentic Tantra, not the watered-down Western version that just means spiritual sex. Authentic Tantra was and is a complete system of using sexual energy to achieve enlightenment, to merge with the cosmic consciousness, to literally become one with the creative force of the universe. They developed practices, specific techniques, where sexual energy would be aroused but not released, where it would be visualized as moving up through the Sushumna Nadi, the central energy channel of the spine, piercing through each chakra like a key opening a lock, until finally it reached the crown of the head, the Sahasrara chakra, where individual consciousness merges with infinite consciousness, where the drop of water realizes it's actually the entire ocean. And in that moment of union, in that explosion of Kundalini reaching the crown, the practitioner could literally see through the illusion of Maya, could perceive the true nature of reality, could access cities or supernatural powers, and most importantly, could manifest anything they desired, because they were operating from the level of consciousness where thought and reality are the same thing. Now I need to talk about something that's going to make some people uncomfortable, but it's absolutely essential to understanding the full picture of sexual energy and reality manipulation. And that's the concept of sexual polarity and how the masculine and feminine energies within you, regardless of your biological sex or gender identity, are constantly creating your reality through their interaction. In Hermetic philosophy, in alchemy, in every authentic spiritual tradition that hasn't been corrupted by patriarchal control systems, there's an understanding that everything in the universe operates on the principle of polarity, of masculine and feminine, of active and receptive, of projective and magnetic, of yang and yin. The masculine energy, the electric force, is penetrative, directive, focused. It's the seed of intention, the spark of will, the forward-moving arrow of desire shooting out into the universe saying, I want this, I claim this, I create this. The feminine energy, the magnetic force, is receptive, nurturing, gestating. It's the womb of manifestation, the fertile ground where seeds become reality. The pulling force that draws desires into physical form through the law of attraction. And here's the key. Here's the secret that changes everything. Your sexual energy contains both of these forces, regardless of your physical body. You have both masculine and feminine energies flowing through you. And when you learn to consciously work with both, when you learn to balance them, to dance with them, to use them intentionally in your manifestation practice, you become unstoppable. You become a reality-shaping force of nature. When you feel sexual desire, what you're really feeling is the masculine force of creative will surging through you, saying, I want, I desire, I claim. And when you feel that deep sense of pleasure, that receptive openness, that surrender into sensation, that's the feminine force saying, I receive, I allow, I birth into form. Most people unconsciously give away this power. They feel desire and immediately seek external gratification. They scatter their masculine projective force outward toward pornography or casual encounters or fantasy, wasting the seed of intention. And they seek pleasure only in physical release, never understanding that the true pleasure, the cosmic orgasm, comes from circulating that energy internally until it explodes upward into enlightenment. Let me give you a practical example of how this works, because this isn't just theory, this isn't just philosophy. This is something you can literally start using today to reshape your reality. And you'll start seeing results within days if you do it correctly. Let's say you have a specific desire. Maybe you want to manifest money, or a relationship, or a creative project, or healing in your body. Whatever it is, hold that intention clearly in your mind. Now, instead of just visualizing it or affirming it like most manifestation teachings tell you to do, which honestly has limited power because you're only using your mental energy, what if you combine that intention with your sexual energy, with the most powerful creative force in your entire being? Here's how the ancient magicians did it, and here's how practitioners of red magic still do it today. You enter into a state of sexual arousal, whether alone or with a conscious partner who understands this work, and as that energy begins to build in your body, as you feel that tingling, that warmth, that power accumulating in your root chakra, You hold your intention firmly in your mind. You feel the desire as if it's already real. You see it, taste it, touch it with every sense, and most importantly, you charge it with the sexual energy that's building in your body. You breathe deeply. You move that energy up from your genitals through your belly, through your solar plexus where personal power resides, through your heart where you add the frequency of love and gratitude, through your throat where you might even speak your intention aloud, through your third eye where you see it manifesting, and finally through your crown where you release it into the quantum field, into the universe, into the cosmic consciousness that must respond to such a powerfully charged intention. And here's the crucial part. Here's where most people mess it up. You don't release through physical orgasm, at least not in the traditional way, because that would discharge the energy downward and outward, wasting it. Instead, you experience what Taoists call a valley orgasm, or what Tantric practitioners call a full-body orgasm, where the pleasure expands throughout your entire being, where the energy rises instead of falls, where you feel that cosmic climax in every cell of your body simultaneously, and in that moment of expanded consciousness, in that moment when you're literally vibrating at the frequency of pure creative potential, you imprint your intention onto reality itself. You literally program the quantum field with your desire, and the universe has no choice but to rearrange itself to match that frequency. Now let's go even deeper, because there's another layer to this that's absolutely critical, and it has to do with why sexual energy specifically is so powerful for reality manipulation. And it comes down to the quantum physics understanding of consciousness and observation creating reality. You've probably heard about the double-slit experiment, where particles behave differently when they're being observed versus when they're not, proving that consciousness itself collapses the wave function of potential into specific manifestation, proving that the observer creates reality through the act of observation. Well, guess what? Sexual energy is the ultimate act of focused observation and intention. It's the most concentrated beam of consciousness that a human being can generate, because when you're in a state of sexual arousal, when that Kundalini is activated and rising, you're not thinking about your grocery list or your emails or your problems. No, your consciousness is intensely focused. Your attention is completely here, completely now, completely alive in the present moment. And that is the state where reality becomes most malleable, most responsive to intention. The quantum field doesn't respond to your casual thoughts, or your wishful thinking, or your half-hearted affirmations. It responds to intensity, to emotion, to the raw power of consciousness focused like a laser beam. And there is no state more intensely focused than the state of sexual arousal channeled consciously. This is why sex magic has been practiced in secret societies throughout history. This is why the Ordo Templi Orientis under Aleister Crowley, controversial as he was, made sexual magic the core of their highest initiations. This is why the Gnostic Christians, before they were wiped out by Orthodox authorities, practiced sacred sexuality as a direct path to knowing God, not through belief or faith, but through direct experience of the creative force. They understood that when two people come together in sacred sexual union with a shared intention, when they build that energy together and direct it together and release it together into the cosmic consciousness, they create a vortex of manifestation power that can literally move mountains, that can heal diseases, that can shift timelines, that can bring about what others would call miracles, but what is actually just the natural result of working with the fundamental laws of reality. But here's where we need to address the shadow side of this knowledge, because with great power comes great responsibility, and sexual energy can be used to manipulate and harm just as easily as it can be used to heal and create. And this is exactly why this knowledge has been kept secret. why it's been encoded in symbols and myths and allegories, why it's been protected by oaths and initiations and dire warnings. Dark magic, black magic, sorcery. All of these terms often refer to the misuse of sexual energy, the directing of sexual force towards selfish ends without regard for free will or the highest good. And throughout history, there have been those who understood these principles and used them for power over others, for control, for feeding their own egos and desires at the expense of others. This is the origin of the succubus and incubus legends, the idea of entities that feed on sexual energy. And while most people think these are just superstitions, practitioners of red magic understand that there's a truth behind the myth. That sexual energy can be vampirized, can be stolen, can be fed upon by those who know how, whether they're physical humans or non-physical entities, existing in other dimensions of reality. This is why protection is so important. Why you need to be conscious about who you share your sexual energy with. Because every time you have a sexual exchange with someone, you're creating an energetic cord, a connection that allows energy and information to flow between you. And if that person is consciously or unconsciously vampiric, if they're operating from trauma or manipulation or power hunger, they can literally drain your life force. They can siphon off your creative potential. They can leave you feeling depleted and confused and wondering why you can't manifest anything even though you're doing all the right practices. This is also why casual sex, pornography, and unconscious sexuality are so dangerous from a spiritual perspective. Not because there's anything morally wrong with the physical acts themselves, but because you're literally giving away your most precious resource. You're scattering your seeds on infertile ground. You're creating energetic attachments with people or images or frequencies that are not aligned with your highest path. And all of that creates noise in your energy field, static in your manifestation signal, blocks in your chakras that prevent the Kundalini from rising, and ultimately keeps you trapped in lower consciousness where you're a consumer of reality rather than a creator of reality. The ancients understood something else that's absolutely crucial, and it's about the relationship between sexual energy and time, between orgasm and immortality, between the conservation of life force and the extension of lifespan. And this is where we get into the territory that makes mainstream science extremely uncomfortable, but which is being validated more and more by cutting-edge research. In traditional Chinese medicine, there's a concept called Jing, which is your essential life force, your inherited constitutional energy that you receive from your parents at conception. And this Jing is finite. You're born with a certain amount, and once it's depleted, you age, you get sick, you die. And guess what's one of the primary ways that Jing is lost? Through sexual emission, through orgasm, through the unconscious discharge of sexual fluids and sexual energy. The ancient Taoist masters weren't celibate. They weren't repressed. They had active and pleasurable sex lives. But they practiced retention. They learned to experience full-body orgasms without ejaculation. They learned to circulate their sexual energy internally through what's called the microcosmic orbit, moving it up the back of the spine and down the front of the body in a continuous loop that recharged their Jing instead of depleting it. That literally kept them young and vital and healthy well into old age. There are documented cases of Taoist immortals, practitioners of these sexual alchemy techniques, living well beyond 100 years with the vitality of people half their age. And while Western science dismisses this as mythology, the mechanism is actually quite straightforward. Sexual energy contains stem cells, growth hormones, testosterone, DHA, and countless other compounds that are associated with youth and vitality and regeneration. And when you retain and recirculate these substances, instead of expelling them, when you refine them through practices like Qigong and meditation and conscious breath work, You're literally giving your body the raw materials it needs to repair and regenerate and maintain itself at optimal levels. Modern biohackers and longevity researchers are starting to discover what the ancient magicians knew all along: that sexual energy management is one of the key variables in determining not just your lifespan, but your HELTHSBN. Not just how long you live, but how well you live, how much energy you have, how clear your mind is, how strong your body remains, how powerful your manifestation abilities are. Let's talk about something that's going to blow your mind, and it's about the connection between sexual energy and the pineal gland, between orgasm and DMT, between sexual alchemy and the literal activation of your psychic abilities. And this is where ancient mysticism and modern neuroscience converge in the most stunning way. Your pineal gland, that tiny pine cone-shaped structure in the center of your brain, has been called the third eye throughout mystical traditions, the seat of the soul by Descartes, the gateway to higher dimensions, and it's responsible for producing DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the most powerful psychedelic compound known to science, the same molecule that gets released when you dream, when you die, and when you have peak mystical experiences. Now here's what they don't teach you in school. Here's what the research is starting to show, but which ancient practitioners already knew. When you practice sexual alchemy, when you move your sexual energy up through the chakras to the crown of your head, you're literally activating the pineal gland. You're stimulating it to produce more DMT. You're essentially giving yourself a natural psychedelic experience without any external substances. And in that state, the veils between dimensions become thin. You can access the Akashic records. You can receive downloads of information directly from source consciousness. You can have precognitive visions. You can communicate telepathically. You can literally see energy and auras and spirits, all because you've used your own built-in technology, your own sexual energy, to activate the dormant psychic centers of your brain. The pineal gland also has crystalline structures in it, actual calcite crystals that respond to electromagnetic frequencies and light. And when you charge these crystals with the electromagnetic field generated by Kundalini rising, when you literally light up your third eye with sexual fire, you transform your brain into a receiver and transmitter of information from the quantum field, from the cosmic internet, from what Jung called the collective unconscious. This is why so many ancient deities and spiritual figures are depicted with pine cones, why the staff of Osiris has a pine cone at the top, why there's a giant bronze pine cone statue at the Vatican, why the Sumerians carved pine cones into their temple walls. It's all pointing to this forbidden knowledge about the pineal gland and its activation through sexual energy. Knowledge that's been hidden in plain sight for those who have eyes to see. Now we need to address something that's extremely important, and it's about the difference between sex and sexuality, between the physical act and the energy itself, because many people hear this information and think, okay, so I need to have more sex to gain more power. But that's actually the opposite of what ancient wisdom teaches, and misunderstanding this point is exactly how people end up giving away their power instead of cultivating it. Sex, the physical act, is just one expression of sexual energy, and honestly it's the most limited expression, the most downward expression, the path of release rather than retention, of discharge rather than circulation. Your sexuality, on the other hand, is your creative life force itself. It's the shakti energy, the divine feminine power that dances through your entire being every moment of every day. It's the same energy that makes you passionate about a project, that gives you charisma when you walk into a room, that makes your eyes sparkle when you talk about something you love, that fuels your creativity and your ambition and your drive to create and manifest and become. When you're sexually vital, when your life force is strong and contained and consciously directed, People feel it. They're drawn to you. Opportunities open up, synchronicities multiply. Reality literally reorganizes itself around your energetic signature because you're broadcasting power. You're emanating the frequency of the creator rather than the frequency of the consumer. But when you're constantly depleting yourself through unconscious sexuality, through pornography addiction, through meaningless encounters, through chronic masturbation without awareness or intention, you're essentially leaking your power. You're puncturing holes in your energy field, and no amount of positive thinking or vision boards or affirmations is going to overcome that fundamental loss of life force. This is why so many people in the modern world feel exhausted, feel like they're running on empty, feel like they're pushing a boulder uphill trying to manifest their dreams. It's not that the law of attraction doesn't work. It's not that they're doing something wrong with their techniques. It's that they're leaking their most fundamental power through unconscious sexuality. And until they address that, until they start practicing retention and transmutation and conscious direction of sexual energy, they'll always be operating at a fraction of their true potential. The mystery schools of ancient Egypt, Greece, and India all had stages of initiation, and the sexual teachings were never given to beginners. They were reserved for advanced initiates who had already mastered their minds, their emotions, their egos, who had proven themselves trustworthy with power. Because these teachings are dangerous in the wrong hands. They can be misused. They can lead to spiritual inflation or dark manipulation or psychic harm if practiced without proper foundation. The preliminary teachings were always about purification, about clearing trauma from the body, about healing the wounds that cause us to seek external validation or use sexuality compulsively or confuse physical pleasure with spiritual fulfillment. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. If you're using sexuality to escape, to numb pain, to avoid feeling your emotions, to prove your worth, to control others, then all the techniques in the world aren't going to lead to awakening. They're just going to amplify your shadow. They're going to give more power to your unconscious patterns. And that's a recipe for disaster. The path of red magic requires radical honesty with yourself, requires looking at your sexual history, your sexual shame, your sexual trauma, your sexual conditioning, all of it, and bringing conscious awareness and compassion to those wounded places. Because only when you've healed the shame can you fully embody the power. Only when you've released the trauma can the energy flow freely without getting stuck in the blockages of the past. This is the integration work that nobody talks about, the shadow work that's absolutely essential. And it's why authentic Tantra and authentic sexual alchemy traditions always include therapeutic and healing components. Always emphasize the importance of working with a qualified teacher or guide. Always warn against the dangers of trying to force Kundalini awakening before you're ready. Let me share something with you that's going to tie all of this together. And it's about the ultimate purpose of sexual energy and red magic, which isn't actually about manifesting money or relationships or success. Those are just byproducts. The real purpose is enlightenment, is the full awakening of your consciousness, is the realization of your true nature as an infinite creative being, having a temporary human experience. The physical universe that you see around you, the chair you're sitting on, the device you're watching this on, your body, all of it is condensed light, is energy vibrating at different frequencies, and the mechanism by which spirit becomes matter, by which consciousness becomes form, by which the infinite becomes finite. That mechanism is sexual energy, is the creative principle, is the union of Shiva and Shakti, of consciousness and energy, of masculine and feminine, of the observer and the observed. When you practice sexual alchemy, when you consciously work with your life force, you're literally reversing the process of manifestation. You're taking dense physical energy and refining it back into light. You're climbing Jacob's ladder from earth to heaven. You're activating the rainbow bridge of the chakras that connects your root to your crown, matter to spirit, human to divine. And when Kundalini finally pierces through the crown chakra, when that serpent fire completes its journey up the spine and explodes into the 1,000-petaled lotus of enlightened consciousness, what happens is indescribable. It's called samadhi in Sanskrit. It's called unity consciousness. It's called cosmic orgasm. And in that state, you directly experience the truth that you are the creator. You are the universe. You are God playing hide and seek with itself. And there's no separation between your consciousness and the quantum field, between your desire and its manifestation, between your intention and reality itself. That is the ultimate fruit of red magic. That's why the ancient masters dedicated their entire lives to these practices, not for power over others, not for material gain, but for liberation, for freedom, for the direct knowing of their true infinite nature. So what do you do with all this information? How do you actually start working with your sexual energy in a conscious way? Especially if you've spent years or decades giving it away unconsciously, or being disconnected from your body, or carrying shame around your sexuality. First, awareness. Simply becoming conscious of your sexual energy throughout the day. Noticing when it arises, what triggers it, how it feels in your body, where it wants to go, and instead of immediately acting on every impulse, you just observe. You create a little gap between stimulus and response. You practice being with the energy instead of being controlled. Be quiet. Second, breath work, because breath is the bridge between body and mind, between conscious and unconscious. And when you combine breath with sexual arousal, when you breathe deeply into your belly and your genitals, when you imagine drawing the energy up with your inhale and circulating it through your body, you're literally beginning the process of transmutation. You're training your nervous system to move sexual energy in new pathways. Third, movement. Whether it's yoga or qigong or dance, or just spontaneous shaking and undulating, getting your body moving while you're in a state of arousal helps the energy flow, helps it break through blockages, helps it rise naturally instead of getting stuck or stagnant. Fourth, intention. Always working with a clear purpose, whether it's healing or manifestation or spiritual awakening, because intention is what directs the energy, is what tells the universe where you want this power to go. And without clear intention, you're just building up pressure without a release valve, which can actually cause problems. And fifth, patience, because this is a practice, it's a path. It's a journey of self-discovery and transformation that unfolds over time. And you can't rush Kundalini. You can't force awakening. You can only create the conditions and then surrender to the intelligence of your own body and spirit to show you the way. Here's something crucial that I need to say before we finish. And it's about consent and ethics and the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. Because red magic isn't just about personal power. It's about recognizing that we're all connected, that every use of sexual energy affects the collective field, that what you do in private isn't actually private at all, but ripples out into the quantum fabric of reality, affecting everyone and everything. When you practice sexual alchemy consciously, when you raise your frequency through retention and transmutation and intentional direction of life force, you're not just changing your reality, you're literally lifting the consciousness of the entire planet. You're becoming a beacon of light that helps others remember their own power. You're contributing to the collective awakening that's happening right now on Earth. But if you use these techniques for selfish manipulation, if you try to control others or bend them to your will, if you practice sex magic with someone without their full awareness and consent, you're engaging in dark magic. You're violating free will, and that comes with consequences, karmic debt that will be repaid, Because the universe is ultimately self-correcting, ultimately just, and what you put out must come back to you multiplied. So please, please, if you choose to walk this path of red magic, do it with integrity, do it with respect for yourself and others, do it in service to love and evolution and the highest good. Because that's the only way this power can truly be sustained and integrated without corrupting you in the process. As we come to the close of this transmission, I want you to really feel into what's been shared here. I want you to recognize that this isn't just interesting information or cool esoteric knowledge. This is your birthright. This is power that's been yours all along, waiting for you to claim it, waiting for you to step into it, waiting for you to remember that you're not a victim of circumstance or fate or external forces, but a creator, a magician, a divine being with the ability to shape reality through the conscious direction of your own life force. The sexual energy flowing through your body right now isn't just biology, it's magic. It's the same creative principle that birthed galaxies and stars and planets, the same force that animates all of life. And when you learn to work with it consciously, when you stop wasting it and start wielding it, everything changes. Your health transforms, your relationships deepen, your manifestations accelerate, your consciousness expands, and you begin to live as the powerful creator you were always meant to be. This is the forbidden knowledge they didn't want you to have. This is red magic. This is sexual alchemy. This is the path of the serpent fire. And now that you know, you can never unknow it. You can never go back to unconscious sexuality. You can never again pretend that you're powerless or that reality is just happening to you rather than being shaped by you. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue giving your power away? Or will you start cultivating it, conserving it, consciously directing it toward the reality you actually want to create? The choice, as always, is yours. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being open to this forbidden wisdom. And remember, you are far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Until next time, stay conscious, stay powerful, and keep awakening to your true infinite nature.